Welcome to Complicated Kids, a podcast about why raising kids can feel like an extreme sport sometimes. We'll talk about quirky kids, highly sensitive kids, orchid kids, and kids with disabilities and disorders. We'll talk about therapies and the different kinds of professionals you might interact with. But we'll also talk about general child development, brain development, parenting tips, keeping people sane, and how to understand the child you brought home with you and agreed to house, clothe, feed, and raise until their adulthood. Parenting is an adventure anyway. If you've got complicated kids, you already know that you are on the ride of your life. Join me to unpack all of it, figure out who needs what, and help your family thrive. I'm your host, toddler whisperer, speech therapist, parent, and parent coach, Gabrielle Nicolet. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Complicated Kids podcast. I'm your host, Gabrielle Nicolet. I am a toddler whisperer, speech therapist, parent, and parent coach, and I am fascinated by all things child development. And here's why. It looks so easy when it's going well. We don't think about how complicated things are until something isn't going the way that we expect. So here's what I mean by this. First of all, making a baby is complicated. And yet, most bodies can do it, most female bodies can do it, without really us having to think about it much at all, right? Like it's automatic. Labor and delivery, let's talk about that. That is a little complicated. What? Something starts contracting and then something the size of a watermelon comes out the whole size of a walnut, or a person takes it out of your belly, or somebody hands you a person to parent and bring home. These are some very complex things that we just kind of accept as normal, right? So then, it's not over, right? Then we expect this child to learn how to eat and learn how to sleep and learn how to smile and learn how to develop relationships and be soothed by us and eventually soothe themselves and talk and do all of these things. It's complicated. But the reason you're probably here is that things are not happening at your house the way that you were expecting or that the way that the books say they should. One or more of your kids is having a hard time learning how to walk or talk or play or relate to other people. One or more of your kids is working really hard to do the work that seems easy and robust and natural somehow. And so here's where we get to play a little bit, which is we get to look at all of the different aspects of child development and start to really understand who it is that we brought home with us. We get to learn about what's hard for them. We get to learn about what's easy for them, what they like, what they don't like. And when we do that, we get to help them become themselves. Here's where things get a little challenging though, particularly if we have complicated kids, because the thing that no one tells us when we bring kids and babies home with us to live is that they are their own person. And if you think about it this way, which I like to because it makes me laugh, which is we brought a total stranger into our house and agreed to house them for upwards of 18 years. Right? We agreed to feed them, to send them to school, to buy their clothes, to take them to soccer or to dance or to fencing or whatever, clubs and stuff that they want to do, right? We agreed to do all that sight unseen, and we were happy to do it. But make no mistake, they came to us as an autonomous being with their own ideas, with their own path, with their own personality and their own life signature, if you will. And so as parents, we get to help our kids get started. And often in the beginning, at least, it can feel like we have some control over their path. And if you read any child development literature, as I do, we have no control over their path. We have influence, but not control. And so no one knows this better than parents who are raising complicated kids. These are the difficult ones for whatever reason. Sometimes there's a diagnosis and sometimes there isn't. But complicated kids refuse, by and large, to be controlled by their adults. They lay their boundaries out early and often. They refuse to play by the rules. They refuse to make nice. They refuse to comply. And they refuse to just kind of make do with what they have. And they continuously assert their own individuality. And so don't get me wrong here. Sometimes the reason that that's happening is because the kids need to learn some skills, right? Sometimes the reason we see certain behaviors like meltdowns and that kind of thing is because that's the tool that's available to them in the moment. And when we teach them other tools that are more useful, they can start to use those. But most of the parenting resources out there are about controlling children's behavior. And if you have a complicated kid, you already know they are almost impossible to control. Most parents have to wait until their kids are older and going through a teen rebellion, or they marry somebody that you don't like, in order to realize that their children are beyond their own control, the parents' control. And so all parents have to grapple with this discrepancy between like their image of their child's life and their child's actual life. It's just that if you have a complicated kid at home, you get to practice this skill early and often. So, congratulations. You are learning very early on what all parents will have to grapple with eventually, which is your child is an autonomous, independent being who has their own path to walk in life, and we can guide them but not control them. Okay, so if the next question you're asking is like, fine, Gabrielle, but like, how do I do this? My house is a shambles, my life is a mess, the schedule is crazy, what do I do? So I've got you. On this podcast, we're gonna jump into all kinds of topics related to raising complicated kids. So we'll talk about tools that you need to help you make decisions that feel really comfortable and make you feel confident as a parent. And we'll also talk about kind of what might be happening developmentally for your child. We're going to also talk to professionals who might be able to help you or give you a perspective on something that you needed to know. So here's what I want you to do. Start making a list of your questions. What do you want to know about your complicated kid? What are the things that keep you up at night? And I want you to send those questions to media@speechkids.com. That will help me know what to cover in coming episodes. And in the meantime, you can listen to the episodes that are already available and see what you want to learn there. I'll talk to you soon. Can't wait. Bye. Thanks so much for listening today. You may or may not know this, but reviews really help people discover the podcasts that they need. When you leave a review, it helps families just like yours find us. Will you take a couple of seconds and leave a review to help other families understand their complicated kids? We'd love it if you would, and thank you. If you're finding this podcast insightful, helpful, or just interesting, I hope you'll join our Raising Orchid Kids community. Head over to raisingorchidkids.com to get strategies, ideas, and information delivered straight to your inbox. You'll also be the first to know when we open the doors for Raising Orchid Kids classes and special events. That's www.raisingorchidkids.com.